as you already know now, because you have some experience, it's usually 2 slots. So we have approximately 1 hour or 50 minutes, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll do the rest. The usual class, but today because it's the first one, it's going to be more like an introduction, general discussion, and to decide all together what we are going to do in this intermediate grammar course. So what is intermediate grammar, and what should we be doing? Because we have several options, and I would like to discuss that with you before we actually start the course. And before we do anything else, Teja and Venerable Dhamma, would you like to introduce yourselves in the class? You are most welcome in this group. Maybe Venerable Teja, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Venerable Teja. I come from Buddhist University, Shubida.
Right. So, what are you studying at the moment?
Yes.
Sorry, Bante?
Yes, I am observer.
Are you in Yangon at the moment?
Yes.
Where exactly in Yangon? Where?
Shubida.
Shubida. Okay.
Yangon Buddhist University, Shubida.
Okay. Very good. Welcome, Bante. Thank you for joining us. You are
yes,
most welcome anytime. And yes. How about Shin Zavana? Venerable Javana?
Yeah, I will Javana from the same university. I'm here to learn how to teach, how to run, to observe. I'm here to observe.
Great. And how did you know about this course? Do you have a friend in SSVU?
Yes. A little bit.
Okay, very good. So the first thing that I thought that we could do today was to discuss a little bit about the essays. Today, our three students in this course, Venerable Kemachara, Venerable Siddhartha, and Matanda. So you got your marks. I think everything went well. You should be very happy about the result. It went very well. But I thought that maybe we could discuss a little bit about the essays, which are also they are good. I didn't see any major problem, but there is one thing that it's probably common to the three essays, and that is, let me try to put it in a way that it's clear and that it can apply to these the three different essays, which are actually, in many ways, they are different. Like when we are going to write an essay, so in this course, also in intermediate Pali this second semester, you are also going to write an essay. So when we write an essay, basically we try to find the topic, right? So we want to find the topic for an essay. Usually when we are at BA level, or even at high school or BA, when the teacher is asking us for an essay, the teacher usually just wants to know how much we know. So the teacher is going to ask about one topic, and then the student will answer and give a kind of definition of that topic. For instance, if someone suppose that the topic is the Milinda Paña, suppose a general topic, the Milinda Paña, it's a Pali book. So in that case, if you are doing BA or that type of basic level study, the essay will be what we call descriptive. I'm going to share the screen, and then I can share also these names. Just give me a second, please. So a descriptive essay, that will be an essay. You can see the screen, right? Now? Yeah. Descriptive essay, that will be an essay that is basically repeating or trying to explain what we already find in the books. Suppose we want to talk about the Milinda Paña. We open one book about the history of Pali literature, and that's it. We collect the data. That's what we do. We collect the data, and then we present. And we are not saying anything. That is the point. We are not saying we are not saying anything new or anything that is our own argument, our own idea. At the BA level, basically the teacher wants to know that you have read the book and that you know the general information. Let's say, for instance, when you go to the Wikipedia, yeah, this is a descriptive article. It will tell you about the general knowledge that we have about one subject. This is general knowledge. Yeah, you can call it general knowledge. That would be the descriptive essay. But let's say that at the BA level, at the MA level, where we are right now, we are kind of aiming at a critical essay. And even some of you, like for instance, Matt and the Soch, you are using the term critical in your title. And Venerable Siddhartha and Venerable Kemachara also, basically, I understand that they are trying to explore some question in a critical way. And actually, the essays are done in a critical manner. I'm not saying that this is not the case, but there is something that is common to the three essays, is that at the end, the conclusion of the essay, any of the essays that you all have presented, the conclusion is already something that we know as common knowledge, as general knowledge, right? So here, actually, the conclusion so it should not be, let's say it's not general knowledge. So that, I think, would be one difference between a kind of critical essay and an essay that is purely descriptive, that is telling us what we know about one subject. This kind of a Wikipedia type of article or essay, when we say, well, this is like this is like that, this teacher says this, that teacher says that, and this is our understanding. For instance, if I say that in Theravada Buddhism, there are three lakkhanas, and that is anicca, dukkha, anatta, and that anatta is also there. So if someone, like in some schools, they say there is atta, they are wrong, right? According to Theravada Buddhism, they would be wrong. Now, suppose I write an essay, and in my essay, I try to say that in Buddhism, we have three lakkhanas, anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Now, this kind of essay or critical?
I would say descriptive.
That is kind of descriptive. Even if in my essay I try to show that some other people, they believe in atta, then I will say, but according to Buddhism, there is no atta. So we have to stick to anatta because that's one of the three marks. So at the end of the essay, what happens is that you don't really, if you already know the basics of Buddhism, you don't learn anything new. Maybe you have more information, maybe you have more arguments, but the conclusion is already established at the beginning. We already know where we are going. You know what I mean? So this is a little bit what happens with the essays that you have submitted, that I think that there is no issue because you are so convinced about what you are saying and you want to prove something, but that is already proved from the beginning. And when you reach the end of the essay, what we learn is something that we already knew at the beginning. It's nothing that we didn't know. That is also something that we can see in the essay of the exam. Actually, this is not just in the course essay. In the exam, you also had an essay of 500 words, and that also was very much there. It was a kind of description of what we find in the Milinda Panya, but there was no kind of there was no further analysis. I couldn't see what you think, for instance. I didn't see what you think about that, or how do you explain it in a different way. Although there are moments here and there where you all discuss it in your own terms, but generally you try to stick to what we know, and that is fine because that we should know that. We should know it's not bad. But in the critical essay, especially from MA level to then PhD and onward, and if you are going to become professional scholars or professors and so on, the idea is that it's like you should absorb knowledge from other sources, but then you have to explain them in your own terms. Now, I give you one example of what that means, what critical thinking means, even inside the tradition, in the Theravada tradition, you also find critical thinking. Many of you, in this course and in other courses, you quote the Bhattattika Sayadaw, Bhattattika Sayadaw, who wrote many books. And these books are called Tika. So what is a Tika? Can you explain what is Tika? Or Bhattattika? What is a Bhattattika? What kind of writing is a Bhattattika? Is that an essay, a commentary? What kind of text is that?
It's actually explanation. How do I say it? So just to give the meaning to the commentary and the Pali word by word, and there are some arguments mentioned in the sub-commentaries. We can see very rarely there are some arguments of the Bhattattika Sayadaw. It can be seen very rarely. Normally, I would say it's like a descriptive Pali and commentary and sub-commentary.
Right. So in what you say, it's a descriptive type of analysis. I think it is partly descriptive, but I think it's also partly critical, in the sense that sometimes the Bhattattika Sayadaw, he has to decide. Sometimes there are different views. There are different views on one topic. And the Sayadaw will try to say which one is correct or which one is more correct, which one looks more correct, appears to be more correct, even if we are not 100% sure. And basically, now, regardless of whether the Bhattattika is a type of critical essay or not, what makes an essay critical is when we have to confront. We have to confronting ideas. There should be a confrontation. Confrontation doesn't mean a fight, doesn't mean that we have to criticize, being very critical and very harsh, like saying this guy is complete ignorant and fool, they don't understand, and we criticize them in this way. Actually, it's rather the opposite. In our confrontation with a different opinion, we should represent the opponent fairly, in a fair manner. We should put ourselves in the boots, or in the person of our opponent, and try to understand what other people are saying. But it is essential that at least we need to have two parties, and they are confronted. This is generally what makes an essay critical. And for that, we need to know clearly what are the two different possibilities, what are the two different opinions, and then we have to take a side. We definitely need to take a side. Even if we say both are correct, maybe there are two opinions, and our conclusion is both are correct. This is also taking sides. Yeah, because we have to say something. We have to say something about this discussion, and we have to show very clearly what is the opposition, what is the issue, what is the confrontation. Yeah. So there should be one topic. A good topic for an essay is a topic that is controversial, it is not so clear. And if I may, I don't know if Venerable Siddhartha, do you give me permission to mention your essay specifically?
It's okay, no problem.
Actually, you got the best mark, so you shouldn't be worried about that. Your essay was very good. But I think it's very good your essay is very good to show how, I don't know how to say, how you didn't go all the way. The topic was really good because the topic implies a problem. The topic of Venerable Siddhartha's essay is about this mention. You probably remember that in the Milinda Panya, there is a mention of the 150 Sikkapadas of the Vinaya, 150. And if you remember in the class, we were discussing like what why 150? What are these rules? Does it refer to specific 150 of the 200 and something rules of the Vinaya, of the Patimokkha? Or is it a different kind of counting in the Patimokkha? Or is it like explained? Is it reference to a moment in the Vinaya tradition where the rules were still being made, and at that time there were only 150, but then some more were added later on? So it refers to that moment. So maybe there are some suttas or some places in the Tipitaka which reflect this moment in the history of the Vinaya. Now, in the essay of Venerable Siddhartha, you are very clearly presenting the view that finally there is just a kind of discrepancy, but in general, both in the Theravada Patimokkha and also in some Sanskrit Patimokkhas, the number of rules is not 150. So this thing about 150 is not, it shouldn't be a problem. Yeah. Now, in your essay, it seems that the conclusion is what we already know, that the Patimokkha rules are 200 and something, right? So I missed in that essay a little bit more in-depth exploration of this 150. Do we take the notion from the commentary that this is just one period of the tradition where there were only 150? This is possible, but maybe there are other possibilities. I don't know. It's like, I think we need sometimes to try to see what would happen if the other view was correct, or maybe there is something else. So you should not be afraid of getting into this possibility. It's just a possibility. We are just trying to imagine what could be the meaning of this. And even though now I'm mentioning the essay by Venerable Siddhartha, this applies to the 3 essays, and also applies to the 3 essays in the exam. It is not. I'm not blaming you at all. That's why you are all getting good marks, I think. And the education system sometimes will ask you to just write descriptive essays, because the teacher, they want to know if you understood or not. But here, it is fine if you write more kind of creative essays with ideas that are your own idea, and you can speculate a little bit. You can always say that, well, this is my idea, and I'm not 100% sure, but it could be, and then you can try to give your own point of view. You're already doing that in your essays, but a little bit more, so to say. So that when I reach the conclusion of the essay, I learned something new. It doesn't need to be, I don't know how to say, it doesn't need to be a new theory, something that will change the understanding of Buddhism, something totally new and that kind of discredits any other scholar. It doesn't need to be something very big, but some kind of insight, some kind of original thought that comes from you. And maybe it is right, maybe it is wrong, but it's the work of your own critical mind. Critical in the sense, not the critical mind of criticizing and being negative. This is not what we mean here by critical. Critical essay, that means basically in Pali, that is a vinichaya. And for a vinichaya, that is a judgment. There should be a problem. Judgment, a vinichaya, it's when we go to court because there is a legal case. For instance, someone stole something from another person, and then that guy will say, this guy, he stole my TV. And the other one say, no, I didn't do anything. This TV is mine. I bought it. It's mine. So there is a confrontation. And the judge needs to decide. This TV, there is only one TV set. It belongs to this guy or belongs to that guy. Or he can say, well, it belongs to both, and I'm going to cut it from the middle and give one half TV to everyone, and they will both cry. You know, there is that story of the Solomon. I think that's in the Bible, but there are other stories everywhere, and maybe in the Jatakas there is a similar story. There was one king who was very, very wise, and one day two young mothers arrived, and there was one baby, and both mothers, they claimed that the baby was their son. So one lady said, "This is my son," and the other one said, "No, this is my son." So how to know the truth? Because finally there is only one baby. You have to give to one mother or to the other. So the king, who was the judge and was very wise, he said, "Well, because you are two, but there is only one baby, what I will do is I will cut the baby in two pieces. I will sew the baby. I will cut from the middle, and I give you half, and I give you half, and then that is equal." And obviously, immediately the real mother said, "No, give it to her. Give it to her." And in that way, the judge, he knew that was the real mother, because she didn't want any harm to the baby. She didn't want the baby to be killed, obviously, because it was her son. The other lady was simply crazy, and she didn't understand anything. So in any case, the judge, whoever has judgment, whoever is critical in that sense, has a critical mind, it needs to decide something. But we need to decide when there is a doubt. When there is doubt. That's why there are many, if you check the list of Pali commentaries, there are many commentaries that are called Vinichaya, or they are called, like for instance, the Sammoha Vinodani, right? Sammoha Vinodani. That means it's destroying ignorance or destroying confusion. So why do we need to destroy confusion? Because there is confusion. There is confusion. So there is confusion. That's why we need to destroy confusion. We don't know something. That's why we need the Vinichaya. We need Vinichaya because we don't know yet. We have to begin from a place where there are various possibilities. It's not, we cannot begin from the beginning saying, this is the truth, and I'm going to show you that this is the truth. And then you tell the truth, and at the end, conclusion, so this is the truth. This is not an essay. This is descriptive essay. In the critical essay, you should not take sides at the very beginning, or you can do that, but you have to pay some respect to the other view or to other views, and try to represent them. Try to explain what they think and why it is problematic. Why do we have a problem? Yeah. The Milinda Panya actually is made in this way. The Milinda Panya, many questions are critical because the King Milinda will ask, in the Tipitaka, the Buddha says this here, and the Buddha says that there, and both things, you cannot have both at the same time. It's a contradiction. There is a problem. There is a contradiction. You have to choose which one is correct. And then Venerable Nagasena will explain, well, sometimes both are correct, but you have to read this is Paramatta Satcha, this is Sammuti Satcha. Or sometimes say, no, this is correct only in that area, this is correct in general. Sometimes they say, no, this one is not correct, this one. Whatever it is. We should start with a problem, yeah? And the problem should be clear, and you have to devote some effort, and you have to learn how to write, explaining and describing the problem. So when we describe the problem, we are here. It's a descriptive essay. So even if we are writing a critical essay, the beginning is always descriptive, but the description is not the description of knowledge, it's the description of doubt or ignorance. We begin by describing our lack of understanding, or the fact that maybe some people believe something, or maybe in the Theravada there is that view, but in other schools or in some texts, even in the Pali Tipitaka, we find the deviation, we find the contradiction, we find the problem. So when we explain what the problem is, when we try to describe the problem, this is also a very important skill in academics. This is essential. This is very, very important skill. And this is called problematized, to problematize. We have to problematize the subject, written like in American English is with the Z, problematize or problematize. I write in the British style, it doesn't matter. To problematize, it doesn't mean to cause problems, to be a troublemaker or anything like that. Again, the word problem in academic English, in etymologically, it simply means something that we need to solve, like a mathematical problem. In mathematics, you have problems. You remember at school, if they ask you 2 plus 4, what is that? That is a problem. Is it 7? Is it 8? Is it 6? You have to decide. It's a problem. But you don't know. So in a mathematical problem, there is equal and then there is a question mark. So this question mark is very important. You have to problematize. You have to present the topic as a problem. And if you do that, you have to do it in such a way that then you can proceed to solve the problem, if you can do it. But before solving any problem, we need to have the problem. So usually one of the essays that you will have to write in MA level, especially at the PhD level, knowing how to problematize a topic is very important, because according to the formulation, according to how you formulate the problem, how you problematize the problem, it's a bit redundant, but like how you problematize the issue or the subject, then the rest of the article will follow. Because the article will be a way to solve or to explain a certain situation. Let me give you one example that you already know, because we read that article together. Do you remember the article by Jonathan Ganeri that we read about the Katawatu?
Yes.
Do you remember what was the problem there? There was a problem. That article is very well written, and there is a confrontation of ideas because it's a critical article. So they are confronting. So there are basically two confronting ideas. What are they? Do you remember? Maybe it's too long already. It's like we've forgotten. Anyone? You can check again. You can open the PDF file and try to remember. Maybe you will see in the abstract what is the. I will try to go to the abstract and maybe we can do it together. We have time. Today is the first day, and I think we haven't had yet proper supervision on essay writing. So this is. The light is a little bit better now, no? Because
yes.
Okay, yeah. So let me try to find this article. 1 second. If you happen to remember the argument by Ganeri, then we can jump there. But you will see that if we go back to that article, you will see how there is a problem. Argumentation. This one. And that's why, and this is the next topic. That I'm going to discuss, the importance of reading a lot, reading articles. Reading books, reading everything. reading and reading. If you see, at least this is SSBU, the SSBU policy. If you see the pictures of our rector Sayadaw, he's always reading. Yeah, he's always reading. This is not just showing off. The meaning of the picture of our rector Sayadaw that he's always reading. There is one meaning for this. In our life is very short. So even if we read the whole time, we cannot read everything. But at least we can read a lot. But if we don't read the whole time, if we are scholars, actually we are not real scholars if we are not reading. I remember when I was doing my BA, in my classroom, there were many students who complained when the teacher said, well, you have to read this book and read that book. They said, we don't have time to read. It's okay. We know that we don't have time. We don't have time for anything. Life is very short. The point is, whatever time you have, you use that for reading if you are a scholar. So this is what you see on the screen is you probably remember, argumentation, dialogue, and the Kathabata. So I think it's the one that we read. And you can see, actually there is no abstract here, but let me see if we just read a couple of lines at the beginning. And you can already see what is the point, what is the contention. There is a contention. When you are writing a critical essay, we usually talk about contention. Do you know this word, contention? Let me try. I'm going to write it on the chat. It's a contention, and someone has some contention. That means it's a kind of argument, but it's contending. That means it's standing against another argument. So see the first line of this essay. Of this article, you can read, right? You can see it on the screen. Yeah.
Yes.
The Katavattu, or Points of Controversy, is a book about method. So what he's going to argue in this essay is this. Now, this is not the opinion of everyone. If you read many essays on the Katavattu, you see, he says, recent scholarship has largely focused on the question of the extent to which there is in the Katavattu an anticipation of results in propositional logics. He says, while it is true that the formulation of argument there is term logic rather than propositional, and true also that the propositional rules are nowhere formulated in the abstract, the codified argumentation clearly exploits manipulations that trade on the definition of material implication, on contraposition, and on at least one of modus tollens, modus ponens, and reductio absurdum. The preoccupation with this question of anticipation assumes, however, a methodology for the interpretation of Indian logic that suffers a number of serious disadvantages. So even if we didn't understand the previous thing, write out the outset, the first paragraph. He is criticizing other scholars, and you can see that here he mentions Aung, that means the Rhys Davies and Shweta Aung translation of the Katavattu, another work dealing with the Katavattu by Shire, Boshensky, and Matilal. So he's referring to other scholars who have treated the Katavattu in a certain way, but now in his essay, he's going to argue against that, or at least he will try to correct, he will try to modify what has been said before. Yeah? Are we following? So right at the beginning, this is how we begin an essay. This is how we begin an article. The beginning of an article is explaining why we are writing this article. So we have to explain why this is a problem. Why what you are going to say is important, or is it necessary? Or maybe it would be better to not to waste our time in writing an essay and repeating what has been said. Maybe it's better to go, I don't know, to the pagoda and practice meditation. Don't waste time on writing essays. So there should be something that it needs to be said. There should be something that it's not clear, and you're going to try to give your own take on that, or at least show that there is a problem, something like this. So here it's written in a very academic way. It's difficult to understand for non-English speakers. I understand that even for English speakers who are not academic, they are not academics, that this kind of style is difficult. But he says the preoccupation with this question of anticipation assumes, however, a methodology for the interpretation of Indian logic that suffers a number of serious disadvantages. So basically what he's saying is that some scholars, when they try to study the Katavattu as a text that is about logic, and this, I think we all agree on that. In the Katavattu there is logic, there is logical thinking. There are arguments that are logical. If this is true, that is also true. If that is not true, that is not true. And this kind of argumentation. So he says that, of course, it's logic, but the methodology for the interpretation of Indian logic in these places, in the previous publications, is this methodology that they are using is not good enough. It has some disadvantages. And now he's going to explain what are the disadvantages. But you can see that already at the beginning, the author is problematizing. What is the problem? So I'm going to tell you what is the problem. Some people already wrote about the Katavattu. Fine. I can give you 4 references. Aung, 1915, Shire, 1933, Boshensky, 1961, and Matilal, 1998. This is just for the reader for reference. You know, you want to see other writings about the Kathavatu. This is what has been said. These are authoritative writings in English about the Kathavatu. But there is a problem in those writings. They all share a kind of methodology. The way they study the Kathavatu is maybe it's not incorrect, but it's problematic. It has some problems. Maybe they didn't understand what the Kathavatu is about. Maybe it's not about the logic, this kind of propositional logic. That's what he wants to say. But it's more about method. And that's his argument. So his argument is that actually the Kathavatu is about the method. It's not about proving something, but about showing how to discuss about something. That's it. Maybe he is wrong, maybe he is right. We don't know. I think both arguments are compatible, but at least what he's saying, it adds some more information, or it adds a kind of different point of view. When we study the Kathavatu, we can also see it as a book that is about method. And that's the contribution. That's Ganeri's contribution here. Yeah. So far so good. What do you think? Any comments before I move to the next point about essay writing? Any comments? Anyone? Please feel free to ask any question or anything that you would like to discuss. We have time, so don't worry.
So actually, the most difficult thing is the linking with the topic. So we have to link each paragraph with the topic. That's the major problem we have faced.
Right. That is a kind of formal problem, or it's a problem that you have in the writing. And I totally agree with you, Bante. And these are things that you will learn how to do it as you write more and more and you practice. Basically, there is only one way to learn how to write essays. And that is writing essays. So you want to learn how to write an essay, you write many essays. You want to know how to drive a car, you drive many hours. You want to know how to do anything, you do it many times repeatedly until you master it. Oops. So the thing is that practice makes perfect. But also, while we are practicing, while we are trying to learn, it's good that if there is someone, like in this case, the instructor or the teacher, who is telling you, well, there are some tips, like you can do this, you can do that. And especially when we are conceiving, when we are thinking about the article, the essay. I'm calling an article, you can call it an essay, an article. In the long term, you all will write articles. Yeah. You all will eventually, they will call you, maybe they already call you for a conference. You go to a conference and you have to present a paper. So if you go to conferences, and I always make this joke in the class, but it's true, we have to accept. First thing, it's very interesting. The first time we go to a conference to present a paper, it's very fun. Because especially if it's after lunch, at least 10% of the people, they are sleeping already when we begin. Already at the beginning, they are already sleeping. So the most we can expect is that we will wake them up, maybe. Others, they as we start speaking, especially if we read our paper, you will see that they start like some people are listening to you like they are sleeping. People fall asleep, you know. It's so boring. And then nowadays, we have the phone. So after 2 or 3 minutes of our talk, you will see that many people in the audience, they will be like this, checking the WhatsApp, checking this, checking the Facebook, everything. Already forgotten about our paper. If we are on Zoom, then people turn off the camera and they do whatever they want to do. You know, they go online and they surf in the internet. And while we are talking, and we are trying to keep things interesting, but it's very difficult. Okay, I understand that we are not entertainers, so our role is not to entertain. Our role is to discuss critically, to discuss important issues. We are scholars. We need to kind of create knowledge. We need to discuss. We need to try to understand things. This is our role. But as a practical thing, like when you go to a conference as a speaker, you probably see all these things. I don't know if you ever experienced that. Any of you? You go to present a paper and everyone is like, they're falling asleep. You know, we can try, we can shout or whatever, but they are falling asleep. They don't care. This is the truth, no? What do you think?
Yes.
We fall asleep. That's the problem. And when we are at the other side, we go to a conference and we are sitting. Okay, 8:30, one paper. Okay, 8:45, one paper. 9 o'clock, one paper. After 5 papers, people talking and we are thinking, oh, I need a coffee, I need a tea. Oh, what time is it? What time is it going to end? It becomes so boring. So the question is why? The question is why? Because I think you also have the experience, at least I have this experience, that sometimes when I go to the conference, the speaker is very good. It's really, really good. And I pay attention all the time. Even if I was falling asleep, I wake up and I want to know more. I want to listen more and more. Because I don't know why this person is telling me something. That something I didn't know is showing me, first thing is showing me that I don't know something. This is very important. You have to show the reader that there is something that we don't know. Even you, the reader, you don't know that. Or maybe you are confused because you read so many books, but these books are wrong. So now I'm going to tell you that whatever you've been reading before, that was not totally correct. And now I'm going to tell you something different. So that will certainly get the attention of the listener or of the reader, like in this case. This is a scholarly article, what you see on the screen. But he's doing that. He's saying right from the beginning, he's talking to the academic community of Buddhist studies, and his first sentence, like the Katavatu, is about method. It's a book about method. No one before him said that. No one before him, at least in English, put it in this way, formulated the issue in this way. So from the beginning, we say, okay, so that's your argument. Interesting. Maybe I agree. Maybe I disagree. These days, I'm reading one book. This is a good example of this. I don't know if it has reached SSBU yet. This is called wisdom as a way of life. The author is Stephen Collins. We have many books by Stephen Collins in the library. There's one called Selfless Persons, another one that is called Nibbana or Nirvana, and other Buddhist felicities. We also have a Pali grammar by Stephen Collins. He passed away in 2016 or 17. He was not so old. It was very unfortunate, and he passed away when he was on a trip. So this book was published after he died. The book was already written. And I want to show you this book because this is a very good example of a book that even though, like for instance, in my case, even though I disagree many times with what he says, I still want to read it. I continue reading because he makes me engage with the topic, with his ideas, without being disrespectful. Yeah. So this is the idea. We have to confront. We have to deal with different ideas. And when you go to a conference, my recommendation would be, actually, even nowadays, I just realized that even the slide, the PowerPoint or the slides presentation sometimes becomes boring, even if there are many pictures. The best speakers, they don't need anything. Just talk. Maybe you can talk 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Just talk. Say something that is relevant and people will listen. But if you have many slides, like we go to many conferences and they put slide number 1 and then some text there and then some picture and some slide number 2. Slide number 5, we're already sleeping because we are lost. So this is not just, as I was saying, it's not just about entertaining. Many times we fall asleep because we don't have the feeling that we are learning anything. Everybody wants to learn. Everybody, especially children. Children want to learn, but even grown-ups want to learn. Everybody wants to learn. That's why people like gossiping. Gossiping. When people say, that guy, he went there and he did that and that. So even gossip is new knowledge. So if you tell something new, people are always interested. That's why people like gossip. But we can say that the gossip is knowledge. Gossip is like very low because this is just criticizing other people. This is very unproductive. unproductive, and it's a waste of time. Gossiping about other people, he did that, he didn't do that. Sometimes it's not even true, but people listen. That's the point. And if you see the media, you look at the Facebook. Facebook is a kind of addiction because it's constantly giving something new. We're learning something new. Or some people say, I'm posting this, I'm in this, I am on a trip. I went here, I went to that country, I'm eating this, I'm eating that. I take a picture with this guy, and we want to know. Everybody wants to know. So if we go to a conference and we fall asleep, that's because our feeling is that we are not learning anything. There is nothing that we are learning. So as a speaker, you have to think like that. You have to talk about things you care about. You have to care about that. Because then you will convey that to the audience. It's a problem that you care about. You think that this is an interesting problem, a real problem, not just for an essay, yeah, not just to satisfy the teacher. Try to write about things that you really care about. I'm not saying that you don't do that. In your case, I have no doubt that the topics that you deal, you care about that. It's just a general kind of recommendation or advice. If I can give an advice, my advice comes from. So I don't have that much experience. I'm not a kind of great professor anywhere, but I have enough experience of seeing sometimes some of my presentations or in a conference, I give a conference or a lecture. Sometimes it doesn't work at all. People are falling asleep. Sometimes there is a reaction. Of course, some people will always sleep, right? But at least sometimes you get a little bit of a reaction and people are following. And sometimes that is, it has nothing to do with the topic. It has to do with the way, how we present the topic, how we problematize the topic. Yeah. Do you agree with that, or do you have experience in going to conferences and feeling bored? And it's just, we are waiting for the coffee break so we can go with our friend to have a coffee and chat something. Is that true? We have to tell the truth. For me, this is yeah. This is the truth. You have to tell the truth. Sometimes it happens. Yeah.
Me too.
So, you know, here in Europe, there is one group of scholars. They are mostly from Italy, mostly from Italy, Austria, some from Germany, and other places, of course, but the core group is from Italy, and they created coffee break conference. It's called the coffee break. I'm going to write it. It's a coffee break conference. And there are many. Every now and then there is a coffee break conference here, there, in different cities in Europe. Like there was one in, I don't know, in Rome, one in Turin, one in, I don't know, sometimes in Germany, sometimes in Oxford, and in many different places, in Vienna. And it's called Coffee Break Conference because the idea of the organizers is that in that conference we should have discussions that are interesting, like the coffee break in a conference. You know what I mean? And if we go to a conference, the coffee break is more interesting than the conference, because we meet our friends who are also scholars, and then we just, oh, what are you doing right now? You're studying this, you read that, and then we have interesting conversations. So the conference should be like that, right? And the essays should be like that. You have to write about something you care about. And also, don't worry about the word count. If it's just 1,000 words, it's okay. But it should be something that you write with your own heart and something you care about. And you have this idea, and it has to confront other ideas. So now I'm going to move to the next topic. Which is a little bit more academic and formal, but it's related to what I just said right now. Don't know if you have any comment or any story or anecdote about conferences. How many of you have presented a paper in a conference? How many?
I have presented a paper when I was in ITVMU.
Right.
There was a conference in Sitagu.
Right.
The conference for 2 days actually. Actually, I felt that boring when I was sitting.
And how about when you presented your paper? Did you have enough time, or they told you, no, you have to finish the, because sometimes also that happens. They say, oh, you have have 2 minutes and you have to finish, or something like that.
I had 10 minutes for presentation and question and answer for 5 minutes. I had to tell more things, but due to the time limitation, I had to stop when 10 minutes. Come.
Right. So that's another. You see that's another thing. And that's why sometimes my feeling is that sometimes I don't know if it happens to you also, especially for some time I had a lot of anxiety about speaking in public, speaking for a conference, or I think it happens to most people, but some people less, some people more. For me, at some point I was very, very anxious when I had to talk. Say, oh, now I have to talk and people will be listening, and you feel a little bit of panic because what are they going to think? I don't know why we feel this kind of fear. We are afraid, or we think too much. And then I realized at some point that part of this tension and anxiety about speaking in public, it's because I want to do it perfect. I want to speak from the beginning, say something, start from the beginning and then make my argument, and everything should be perfect. I should not make any mistake. That's my fear, that I'm going to make a mistake. But then when I become afraid, then I feel, oh, now I'm not, my mind is not focused. Now I'm sure I'm going to make a mistake. And then you get, it's a kind of feedback process. And then sometimes we feel that kind of tension or panicking, especially at the beginning. Then after talking 5 minutes, then we forget, but at the beginning. But at some point I realized that this is useless, because first thing, if we get tension, then surely it's not going to work well. And also, there is no perfect way to begin a conference. And I decided that it's much better to improvise a little bit and start from wherever. Just take any point for starting and then connect with the other points. So don't worry too much about the structure. It's just when you begin, then you start making the structure. You begin from anywhere that you want to start, and then according to time, you talk that much time. Instead of thinking, I have to give that paper, and then put that paper into the 10 minutes time or 15 minutes time. You just think that I'm going to talk for 10 minutes about this topic. I can not cover everything, but at least whatever I say will be, things that I care about. And if you don't think too much, immediately you will start talking about the things that you care about. And that's mostly what your paper is about. And you will probably summarize your paper in a way that is easy to understand for everyone. And it generally works, I think. And that's what I try to do these days. And more, my goal, I don't know about you. My goal is that I don't want to use any presentation. I don't want to use anything. It's just speaking. Because to me, some of the best lectures that I attended, there's nothing. It's just speaker. And actually there was the famous Steve Jobs, the Steve Jobs of Apple. He used to say that if what you are going to say is interesting, you don't need the PowerPoint or PPT. The PowerPoint is just to distract, and we use it. It's good for classroom, certainly, there is no doubt. But when you have to say something that is interesting, people will listen. And if you look at on YouTube these days, many YouTube channels, they don't have anything. It's just one person speaking. It's just one guy speaking, or a podcast. A podcast is a conversation. Conversations are very interesting because there are different points of view. When we are writing, in theory, there's only our point of view, but we should represent also other point of view. It should be like a discussion. Then it becomes critical, it becomes controversial in the good sense of the term. It's like a debate. And then it's more interesting and we can learn something. Now, this takes me to the second part of this kind of comment on the essay writing. One detail, but in your case, I think the three of you, the format is quite good. The format, just the formatting, when you present it, it should be in, I don't know, Times New Roman, double space or something like that. The font should be the same font. You have to pay attention to these things, to the format. Formatting of the document, it should be easy to read. These things, you can see that finally everything that I'm saying, we have to think about our reader. But when we write, it's not for ourselves, it's for the reader. Even though some people say, I write because it helps me to, me. I do it for myself. Okay, but finally, if you really want to write and write something and publish, that's because you want other people to read. So we have to think about everything. It's like when you invite someone to your house to eat lunch. Okay, the food has to be good, but also the seats. If they are sitting on a table or on a, that also should be comfortable. And the table should not be too high or too low. And if it's too hot, then you will put a fan. If it's too cold, you will put something to you'll create a kind of atmosphere. So that when they eat the food is also good and nutritious and delicious. And whatever. So it's all these details. It's like inviting a guest. So when we are writing an essay, we are also inviting a guest. Our guest is the reader. And the house is the document, the Word document, how it looks. But is it easy to read? Or it destroys your eyes because there are too many different fonts, or the font is too small. Or too big. So in general, in your case, this is not a big problem. I think in some places the footnotes, in theory, they should go in the same font as the main text. Check that, because sometimes when you select all, it doesn't include the footnote. Yeah. So also you go to the footnote and select all and choose the same font. If it's Times New Roman, everything Times New Roman. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to the typos. Also, I didn't see many typos in your essays. Actually, I have seen more typos in the second year MA. Their essays are words. In that sense, in the sense of typos, it's too many. Not everyone, but in some of them, they still haven't. And so formally, try to make the text very simple and easy to read. Basically, you have done that, so I don't have much complaint. in that area. But one thing, now we go to the main point. Do you remember, you have been doing the introduction to the academic study of Buddhism, right?
Yes.
So when you have to write a dissertation or an essay, what is the first thing that you do? Suppose the teacher says, you write an essay about that topic, or you write an essay, any topic. What is the first thing that you do when you're writing?
Choose the topic.
Okay, choose the topic. Suppose we already have the topic, Bante. Now we have to start working. What is the first thing that we do?
We have to collect the data.
Right.
And read the books.
So there is a name for that. I don't know if you remember if it rings the bell, the literature review. Literature review. Have you heard about this?
Yes.
The famous literature review, Venerable Kemachara. Have you heard about the literature review?
Yeah.
Matan Daso, have you heard?
Yes.
Now I can guarantee this. I can guarantee. That in your 3 essays, in none of them there is literature review. Some people may think that, okay, how do you want literature review? This essay is a very short essay. It's just a course essay. It's not the MA dissertation. We don't need literature review. Actually, we always need literature review. Always. And a literature review can be very short. It can be 2 lines or 3 lines. And again, I can give you an example. Like, this article that you see on the screen. So this is the literature review. That's it. That's it. It's 3 lines, 4 lines. But you have to mention what are the publications that you are going to engage with. Because in the end, in our area, of study, whether we do textual studies or we don't do textual studies, anyone, whether you do philology and you study grammar, or you study sociology and social Buddhism, and society, or Buddhism and ecology or nature, whatever. We always base our writings on literature. That means other books that have been written by other people. So in our case, the literature review usually focuses on the secondary literature. Our sources are twofold. So we have primary sources. That is also something that in your reference section, you should have two. At least two sections. My kid is coming here, so sorry about that. This is a new house. I don't know if you can see. So. This is where we moved. So there are two types of sources, the primary sources and the secondary sources. So do you know what is the difference between primary and secondary sources? Anyone could. Suggest?
Regarding our Tripitaka studies, we know the Pali commentary and sub-commentary are primary. Resources.
Okay. And what? What would be the secondary?
Someone has written a book based on primary sources.
Right. So in this case, for instance, if we go back to this article by Jonathan Ganeri, that is it's a very good example. example. We just have it here, and it's about the Katavatu. So it's one possible essay on the Katavatu or Milinda Pancha. So here, the Katavatu itself, the Katavatu, the Pali text called the Katavatu, this is the primary source. This is our primary source. That is the Pali text. That is the primary source. But okay. Hola, hola. Okay, this is here. You can see that